You begin by standing still. Not because you were told to, but because the air itself suggests it. There is a warmth around you, faint and steady, like sunlight filtered through curtains at the end of a long afternoon. Your breath finds a slower rhythm without effort. Inhale softly. Pause. Exhale, as if easing into a chair that already knows your shape. Before you now is a library, though it does not look like one you have known. There are no walls in the usual sense, no corners or ceilings to measure. Instead, there is space. Gentle space. A quiet openness filled with drifting light, the kind that seems to float rather than shine. You sense shelves, though they are more implied than built. Lines of presence. Pathways of glow. And resting along them are atoms, countless and calm, each one like a small book that has been waiting a very long time without impatience. They do not call out. They do not compete. They simply are. You step forward, and the library accepts you without comment. The floor beneath you feels steady, though it looks like nothing at all. A distant hum settles into the background, low and comforting, like a faraway machine that has already finished its most important work. You notice that the sound rises and falls with your breathing, or perhaps your breathing is rising and falling with it. Either way feels fine. In this place, memory does not announce itself. It lingers. You have always known memory as something busy. Something that flickers behind your eyes, jumps between moments, insists on being recalled. Here, memory feels different. It feels patient. Like warmth left in a room after someone kind has gone. You realize, slowly, that this library is not about stories written in ink. It is about patterns. About arrangements. About how something can remain changed simply because it once encountered something else. An atom nearby glows faintly, not brighter, not dimmer, just enough to be noticed if you are paying attention. You do not touch it. You do not need to. The idea of touching feels oddly loud here. Observation is enough. Presence is enough. In the world you come from, memory belongs to brains, to circuits, to notebooks and screens. Here, memory feels woven into matter itself. Not stored like a file, but held like a posture. A subtle leaning toward what has already happened. You breathe again, slow and easy. There is a gentle humor in realizing that atoms, the quiet building blocks of everything, may be better at patience than you have ever been. They have been waiting here for ages without checking the time. Without checking anything at all. If they could smile, it would be a very small one. As you walk deeper into the library, the light shifts slightly, as if responding to your movement. Not reacting. Responding. There is a difference, and you feel it in your chest. Reaction is sharp. Response is soft. This is where science begins to feel like listening. You remember learning that atoms are tiny, solid things. Little beads bouncing around. The library gently corrects that idea without embarrassment. These atoms feel more like clouds than dots. Places where something tends to be. Pages that are never entirely still, even when they seem calm. Memory here is not a snapshot. It is a tendency. An atom remembers not by replaying the past, but by being shaped by it. By having its possibilities nudged, ever so slightly, by what has already brushed against it. You sense this without equations, without diagrams. The understanding arrives like a yawn. Natural. Unforced. The shelves stretch on, but you do not feel overwhelmed. There is no urgency to see everything. No checklist. No tour guide tapping a watch. The library moves at the speed of rest. Your shoulders drop as you exhale. Somewhere, very far away, a page turns. Or maybe it doesn't. The sound is ambiguous, and that feels appropriate. Precision is not demanded here. Only attention. You begin to understand that this library is everywhere. It has always been everywhere. Every atom you have ever touched, every breath you have taken, has been quietly remembering its encounters. Not sentimentally. Just faithfully. There is comfort in that. If memory is everywhere, then nothing is ever entirely lost. Not in the dramatic sense. In the gentler sense. The sense that things leave traces, and traces matter. You pause beside a cluster of atoms that glow together, their light faintly synchronized. They remind you of books that belong to the same series, though no one bothered to label them. They simply know. You smile, barely. It feels like the right size of smile for this place. This is only the entrance, you realize. The outer room. The place where your eyes adjust and your breathing slows. Deeper inside, the idea of memory will soften even further. It will loosen its edges. It will stop behaving like a thing and start behaving like a relationship. The library hum deepens, just a little, like a reassuring sigh. You take one more slow breath in, and a long breath out, and without realizing exactly when it happens, you are already moving forward again, drifting gently toward the shelves where memory waits to be understood not as storage, but as connection, and the light follows you quietly into what comes next. You do not notice when walking turns into drifting. It simply happens. The library seems to widen as you move, not outward but inward, as if space itself is taking a deeper breath with you. The light grows softer, more diffuse, like evening settling into a room that has been awake all day. Your steps make no sound. Even the idea of sound feels optional here. You inhale gently. You exhale, and your shoulders loosen. In this quieter section of the library, memory no longer feels like something you can point to. It does not sit neatly on a shelf waiting to be retrieved. Instead, it behaves like warmth left behind after a hand leaves a surface. You cannot see it, exactly, but you know it is there because the space feels different. This is where memory begins to slow down. In the world you came from, memory is often treated like a box. You put things in. You take things out. On. Off. Present. Absent. Useful, but a little rigid. The library does not criticize this idea. It simply offers another one, calmly, like an alternative pillow you might try later. Here, memory feels relational. An atom does not remember alone. It remembers because it has interacted. Because something passed near it. Because energy brushed by and did not leave things exactly as they were. Memory is not an item stored inside the atom. It is the atom, subtly changed by connection. You pause beside a shelf that glows just slightly brighter than the others. The light pulses slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a resting heartbeat. You sense that many have passed this way. Not crowds, just moments. And each moment has left a softness behind. You smile again, small and quiet. It seems you do that more often here. The distant hum you noticed before is still present, but it has thinned, like a sound heard through water. It no longer asks for attention. It simply keeps time in the background, reminding you that things are continuing even while you rest. Memory, you realize, does not rush. You think about how often you try to hold onto things tightly. Moments, ideas, feelings. The library offers a gentler approach. It shows you memory as something that settles naturally when you stop stirring it. Like sediment in clear water. Like breath finding its own rhythm once you stop correcting it. You breathe in. You breathe out. Along these shelves, atoms glow differently depending on what they have encountered. Not brighter or dimmer in any dramatic way. Just differently. Their states are shaped by experience, not labeled by it. No titles. No summaries. Just subtle shifts that matter deeply if you know how to notice. This is why slowing down helps. When you move quickly, memory looks binary. Yes or no. Stored or erased. But when you slow enough to match the pace of atoms, you begin to sense the in-between states. The maybes. The lingering influences. The way something can be mostly gone and still gently present. There is a tiny humor in realizing that memory has always been like this, and you have simply been too busy to notice. The atoms are not offended. They have waded through much worse distractions. A shelf nearby emits a faint shimmer, like light reflecting off still water. You sense that memory here is shared. One atom's past subtly affects another's present. Not dramatically. Just enough to matter. Like how being in a calm room can make you calmer without you realizing why. This is memory as atmosphere. You feel it in your chest, a spreading ease that has no obvious source. Your breathing deepens again, naturally, without instruction. The library seems pleased, though it does not show it. If it had a personality, it would be the quiet kind that never interrupts. You realize that classical memory, the kind you usually think about, depends on certainty. Clear distinctions. On or off. 0 or 1. Useful for machines that need to decide quickly. Less useful for understanding how the universe actually holds on to things. Here, memory is more forgiving. An atom can remember softly. It can remember partially. It can remember in a way that only becomes visible when you look at it from the right angle, at the right pace, with the right patience. You pass a cluster of atoms whose glow seems to echo each other faintly, like shelves that have agreed to keep a shared secret. You do not know what the secret is. That feels appropriate. Not all memory is meant to be accessed. Some of it simply shapes what comes next. You feel reassured by this. If memory is relational, then forgetting is not failure. It is just another change in relationship. Another shift in how things connect. The library holds this idea gently, without judgment. You stop walking again, though you did not decide to. The air feels warm against your skin, like the moment just before sleep when you realize you are already halfway there. Light drifts lazily above you, unconcerned with direction. This is where memory begins to whisper about possibility. If atoms can remember through relationship, then memory does not have to be forced into rigid containers. It can be invited, supported, allowed to settle. This idea will matter later. You sense that without needing to know why yet. The shelves ahead glow a little more brightly now, and beneath the hum you notice something else. A gentler sound. Almost like a purr. Almost like anticipation. You let your shoulders drop as you exhale. The library seems to lean forward with you, guiding you deeper between the shelves, toward a place where atoms will become even less certain, even more expressive, and memory will begin to blur into possibility, waiting patiently for you to notice how it refuses to stay still. You notice the change before you understand it. The shelves ahead do not look unstable. They feel unfinished. The light here moves differently, not faster, just less committed to staying in one place. It drifts, hesitates, overlaps with itself. Your breath slows again, responding without being asked. Inhale gently. Pause. Exhale, as if releasing a thought you no longer need to hold. You step closer to the shelves, and the atoms resting there seem less like books and more like open pages caught mid-turn. They do not settle when you look at them. They shimmer, not nervously, but thoughtfully, as if considering several options at once. This is where the library stops pretending to be tidy. You remember being told that atoms are small and precise, tiny pieces of certainty holding the world together. The library does not argue. It simply shows you something quieter and more honest. Here, atoms feel like clouds of likelihood, soft regions where something tends to be, without promising to stay. An atomic page, you realize, does not commit to a single sentence. Memory here is fluid. It behaves like ink still deciding how deeply to soak into paper. Nothing has gone wrong. Nothing is incomplete. This softness is the feature, not the flaw. You breathe in, and the air feels slightly cooler, like the space just before dawn. You breathe out, and the hum beneath the library shifts, almost amused. It is the sound of certainty loosening its grip. There is gentle humor in how uncomfortable this would make a filing cabinet. You pause beside a single atom that seems to glow in several places at once. Not brighter, just plural. You sense that it carries more than one potential story, layered together without urgency to choose. It remembers not one path, but many possible traces of interaction. This is where memory begins to behave like possibility. In the world outside, you often want answers to stay still. You want thoughts to line up, facts to behave, meanings to behave even more. The library invites you to try something else. To let meaning wobble slightly. To let understanding arrive without locking the door behind it. The shelves here seem to breathe. As you drift along, you sense that these atomic pages are never fully written until they are read. And reading, you are beginning to understand, is not the same as looking. Reading involves presence, interaction, the willingness to affect what you are observing simply by being there. You smile, quietly, at the idea that even paying attention has consequences. The atoms do not mind. They have always known this. Memory in this part of the library is not a fixed record. It is a readiness, a leaning towards several futures at once, shaped by the past but not imprisoned by it. Each atomic page holds a range of outcomes, all humming together like a soft chord. You feel this chord in your chest, low and reassuring. There is no pressure to resolve it. You recall how earlier rooms of the library taught you that memory is relational. Here, that relationship becomes less defined, less like a handshake, more like overlapping shadows at sunset. You cannot tell where one ends and another begins, and it does not seem important to try. The light flickers softly above you, never demanding clarity. It behaves like it trusts you to rest without answers. You stop walking again, and this time the space stops with you. The shelves do not rush ahead. The atoms do not scatter. Everything waits in a way that feels deeply respectful. You realize that instability is not the right word for what you are sensing. This is not chaos. This is generosity. The generosity of holding more than one truth without forcing a decision. There is something comforting about that. If an atom can exist as a cloud of likelihood, then memory does not need to be precise to be real. It only needs to be influential. It only needs to shape what might come next, gently, without insisting. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out even more slowly. The hum deepens again, and beneath it you notice a subtle rhythm, like a heartbeat you are not responsible for maintaining. The library has its own pace. You are simply borrowing it for a while. A nearby shelf glows faintly brighter as you pass, as if acknowledging your presence without recording it in any permanent way. Memory here is not possessive. It does not cling. It adjusts. This makes you feel safe. You think about how often you worry about forgetting, about losing pieces of yourself. The library suggests another way to see it. Nothing is lost. It is simply redistributed among possibilities. Softened. Spread thin enough to influence many futures instead of anchoring one. There is quiet kindness in that idea. The shelves ahead seem less solid now, more like suggestions of shelves. The pages flutter without wind. You sense that the deeper you go, the less memory will behave like storage and the more it will behave like music, existing only while it is being played. You feel no fear at this thought. Only curiosity, wrapped in calm. Your breath matches the rhythm again. In. Out. In. Out. And as you drift forward, you begin to wonder, gently, without urgency, how anyone ever manages to read a page that holds many meanings at once, and the library answers not with words, but with a widening hush, inviting you onward, toward a place where overlapping truths are not a problem to solve, but a lullaby waiting to be heard. You notice that nothing here is asking you to decide. And that feels like relief. The shelves open outward, not in straight lines, but in layers, like curtains made of light. Each one drifts partially in front of another, and you realize that you are not meant to walk between them so much as through them. Your breath slows again, responding to the absence of demand. Inhale softly. Pause. Exhale, without resolving anything. This is the room where pages overlap. Earlier, the atomic pages refused to stay still. Here, they refuse to stay separate. You see atoms that seem to exist in more than one posture at once, not blurred, not broken, simply shared. Their glow occupies several places together, like a thought that belongs to more than one memory. This is superposition, though the word feels heavier than the experience. In this library, superposition is not a rule to memorize. It is a feeling. The feeling of holding more than one possibility without strain. The feeling of letting ideas rest beside each other instead of stacking them into order. You feel your jaw unclench. You did not realize it was tight. The light hums here, gently layered, like several notes played at once but never loudly enough to become a song. It does not resolve. It does not need to. You sense that atoms in this space are not waiting to be one thing or another. They are already being many things, calmly, without confusion. Memory here behaves the same way. Instead of choosing a single outcome to remember, an atom holds several traces at once. Several tendencies. Several ways of responding to the next interaction. Memory becomes a field rather than a file. A spread of readiness, shaped by the past but open to many futures. You breathe in, welcoming uncertainty. You breathe out, without needing resolution. There is a small, almost playful realization that this would make a terrible system for alphabetizing books. The library does not mind. It was never trying to be efficient in that way. It values richness over neatness, depth over speed. You drift beside a cluster of atoms whose light overlaps so completely that it is impossible to tell where one ends and another begins. They feel like a chord held down gently, not struck. You sense that each atom remembers several states at once, none of them canceling the others out. This is not confusion. This is capacity. You think about how often you try to simplify things too quickly. How often you reduce complex experiences into single stories so you can move on. The library offers you a slower option. It allows memory to remain layered, unresolved, quietly full. Superposition, you realize, is not about being undecided. It is about being unforced. The shelves seem to expand as this understanding settles. Not physically, emotionally. The space feels more forgiving, as if it has made room for you exactly as you are, without asking you to collapse into a single version of yourself. The hum beneath the library deepens again, steady and warm. It feels less like a sound and more like reassurance. You are not late. You are not behind. Nothing is waiting for you to hurry. You stop moving, and several shelves seem to pause with you, though you know they are not actually responding. Or maybe they are. In this place, the difference feels unimportant. Memory here does not collapse until it is asked to. You sense that observation matters, but not urgently. Looking is an interaction. Attention is a gentle touch. When you focus too sharply, the pages begin to choose. When you soften your gaze, they remain open, layered, alive with possibility. You smile faintly at how polite reality can be when you do not rush it. The atoms do not resent being observed. They simply respond, adjusting their balance of possibilities, like a person shifting slightly when someone sits nearby. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to matter. You feel the shift inside yourself as well. Thoughts that usually line up in a single file begin to spread out. Memories you normally define one way loosen their edges. You are not losing clarity. You were gaining space. This is why the library feels larger here. Superposition allows memory to be more than a record. It allows it to be a resource. A quiet reserve of options that can be drawn from later, when the moment asks for it. The light above you flickers softly, overlapping with itself. It does not demand interpretation. It simply exists in layers, and that seems to be enough. You rest your attention there for a moment, letting your breathing synchronize with the gentle rhythm of the room. In. Out. In. Out. Each breath contains several sensations at once, and you do not choose between them. You realize that this is how atoms have always been. It is how memory has always been, too. You were simply taught to look at it from angles that favored certainty over truth. There is comfort in discovering that complexity does not require effort. Only patience. As you begin to drift forward again, the shelves ahead shimmer with even deeper connections. You sense that some pages do not merely overlap within themselves, but reach outward, linking their layers with others far away. The idea settles quietly: if pages can exist in many states at once, perhaps they can also exist together, no matter the distance. The library does not explain this yet. It only hums a little more warmly. And as you move on, carried by slow breath and layered light, you feel the door opening toward a place where memory is not only many things at once, but shared, waiting for you to notice how some shelves remember each other, even when they appear far apart. You sense it before you see it. A softness stretching across space. The shelves here are farther apart, yet they feel closer together. Light drifts between them in long, patient arcs, like breath traveling through a sleeping body. You slow without deciding to. Inhale gently. Pause. Exhale, letting your shoulders sink as if they have finally been given permission. Some atoms glow alone. Others glow together. You notice pairs first. Two shelves, distant from each other, sharing the same faint rhythm of light. When one brightens, the other responds, not faster, not louder, just in quiet agreement. There is no visible signal passing between them. No beam. No thread. And yet, the connection is unmistakable. This is where memory stops being private. In the earlier rooms, atoms held many possibilities within themselves. Here, they hold possibilities with each other. Memory stretches outward, forming a relationship that does not depend on proximity. Two atomic pages, once connected, continue to remember together, even when separated by space. The library does not dramatize this. It treats it as ordinary. You stand between two such shelves and feel something subtle shift in the air, like the space itself has learned a new way to breathe. The hum beneath everything changes pitch slightly, warm and steady, as if pleased with the cooperation. Entanglement, you realize, is not about control. It is about agreement. These atoms are not sending messages back and forth. They are not checking in. They are simply sharing a state, like two people who finish each other's sentences without trying. Memory here is mutual. What one knows, the other reflects. There is gentle humor in how dramatically humans describe this elsewhere. Spooky. Mysterious. Impossible. The library would smile at that if it bothered. To atoms, this is just what happens when connection is allowed to persist. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out, feeling warmth spread across your chest. You think about how often you imagine memory as something that belongs to you alone. Your experiences, your thoughts, your past. The library offers a kinder perspective. Memory has always been shared. Every interaction leaves traces on both sides. Every meeting changes more than one thing. Entangled shelves glow faintly brighter as you notice them, not because you are observing, but because attention here behaves like a soft acknowledgement. You are not collapsing anything. You are simply witnessing a relationship that already exists. The space between the shelves feels less empty now. Not filled. Just meaningful. You walk closer to one shelf, and far across the room another responds with the smallest shift in light. You do not feel surprised. The library has already prepared you for this kind of gentleness. Entanglement is memory that refuses to be lonely. Two atoms, once interacting deeply enough, carry that interaction forward together. Their states remain linked, not through force, but through history. The past does not sit behind them. It lives between them. You feel a quiet reassurance in this. If memory can be shared at such a fundamental level, then connection is not something that fades simply because distance appears. Some relationships are written into the structure of reality itself, subtle and enduring. The light here feels warmer, like late afternoon sun resting on skin. You linger without purpose, watching how the glow on one shelf echoes another, how patterns repeat without copying. It is not symmetry. It is resonance. The hum deepens again, and you notice that it, too, seems entangled with your breathing. When you inhale, it swells slightly. When you exhale, it softens. Or maybe your breath is following it. Either way, the partnership feels comfortable. You smile, just a little, at the idea that even here, you are part of the system. Observing, breathing, participating. Memory in this room feels less like storage and more like trust. An atom does not need to know where its partner is. It does not need to check. The connection simply holds. This is not communication in the usual sense. It is correlation. A shared condition that remains true together. You sense that this has enormous implications, though the library does not rush to explain them. It never does. It prefers that understanding arrive like sleep, gradually, from many small comforts rather than one loud revelation. You pass through a corridor where multiple shelves are entangled in gentle networks, small constellations of shared memory. They glow softly, like groups of fireflies agreeing on a rhythm. No leader. No signal. Just coherence. This is memory as community. You feel your chest loosen again, as if something you have been holding quietly lets go. The idea that connection can persist without effort is deeply soothing. It asks nothing from you. It simply is. There is something reassuring about how little drama is involved. The library does not suggest that everything is entangled with everything else. It is more selective than that. Connection here is meaningful because it is rare and specific. It happens when interaction is deep enough. When history is shared fully enough. That feels fair. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out, longer. As you move on, The shelves begin to feel less like objects and more like conversations paused mid-sentence. The library around you is no longer a place you are walking through. It is a web you are gently resting inside. You realize that this changes how you understand memory entirely. If memory can exist between things, then it is not confined to where it began. It is not trapped inside atoms, or minds, or machines. It lives in relationships, in shared states, in quiet agreements that do not require constant attention to remain true. The light ahead grows softer now, less synchronized, more fragile. You sense that these shared memories are delicate. That too much disturbance could blur them, loosen their careful balance. The library seems to slow with you, preparing you. As you drift forward, carried by warm light and shared hum, you begin to feel how easily these connections could fade if handled roughly, and the shelves grow quieter, inviting you gently into the next space, where memory's beauty will reveal its vulnerability, and you will learn why these pages must be treated with such care. You feel it as soon as you arrive. The library grows tender. The light dims slightly here, not darker, just more careful. It moves as if it does not want to bump into anything. You slow your pace without thinking about it, the way you do when entering a room where someone is sleeping. Inhale softly. Exhale longer, as if cushioning the space around you. These shelves do not glow as steadily as the others. Their light flickers, faint and shy, like candles responding to the smallest draft. You sense immediately that memory here is beautiful, but sensitive. Not weak. Sensitive. There is an important difference, and the library takes its time letting you feel it. You pause, and everything seems to pause with you. In the earlier rooms, memory felt generous, layered, shared. Here, it feels exposed. The atomic pages still hold their subtle patterns, still remember their past interactions, but the memories seem to hover closer to the surface, easily brushed by whatever passes nearby. This is where you learn about fading. In the world you know, fading often sounds like loss. Like something going wrong. The library offers another framing. Fading here is not error. It is honesty. These memories are fragile because they are open to their surroundings. They listen too well. A distant hum rises slightly, and you notice a nearby shelf respond, its glow blurring at the edges. Nothing dramatic happens. No collapse. Just a soft smudge, like breath fogging glass for a moment before clearing again. You realize that even sound can touch memory here. Quantum memory, the library suggests gently, exists in constant conversation with its environment. Every vibration, every stray warmth, every passing interaction nudges it. The atoms are not isolated. They never were. Their memories live in a world that will not stop moving just because you ask nicely. You breathe in short and gentle. You breathe out long and comforting. This is decoherence, though again the word feels heavier than the experience. Here, decoherence feels like distraction. Like trying to hold a thought while someone keeps tapping your shoulder. The memory does not disappear instantly. It just loses its clarity. Its layers blur into something more ordinary. You feel a small flicker of empathy. How often have your own thoughts faded not because they were wrong, but because too much happened at once? Too many sounds. Too much light. Too much urgency. The library seems to nod, if a place can nod. You move carefully now, aware that even your presence matters. Observation is gentle, but not neutral. Being here changes things slightly. The library does not scold you for this. It trusts you to move with care. The shelves seem grateful. You notice that the atoms holding the most delicate memories are not hidden away. They are right here, open to everything. Their vulnerability is the price of their richness. To remember in layered, shared ways, they must remain responsive. And to remain responsive is to risk being disturbed. There is no tragedy in this. Only balance. A shelf nearby dims as a faint ripple of warmth passes through the air. The memory it held does not vanish. It simplifies. It becomes less quantum, more ordinary. The library accepts this transition without disappointment. Not all memories are meant to last forever in their most delicate form. You feel reassured by that. Memory here is not about permanence. It is about presence. About holding complexity for as long as the conditions allow, and releasing it gracefully when they do not. You stop beside a section where the light feels especially thin, like dawn just before sunrise. The hum beneath the library quiets further, as if lowering its voice out of respect. You sense that this area is easily overwhelmed. Even excitement could be too much. You smile softly at the idea that enthusiasm can be disruptive. The atoms here teach patience. They ask for stillness, not because they demand control, but because stillness is kind. When movement slows, when noise softens, when energy settles, these memories have room to breathe. You breathe with them. Inhale briefly. Exhale slowly, longer than before. You realize that quantum memory does not fade because it is poorly designed. It fades because it is exquisitely sensitive. It notices everything. It refuses to shut the world out. That openness is what allows it to hold layered possibilities in shared states in the first place. To remember deeply is to risk forgetting easily. The library holds this truth without judgment. You think about how often systems are built to be loud, fast, and resilient through force. Quantum memory asks for something else. Quiet. Protection. Environments that understand the value of calm. You glance back toward the shelves of entanglement and superposition. They feel farther away now, not in distance, but in mood. This room is more intimate. More fragile. It feels like holding something precious in your hands and realizing you must breathe differently so it does not slip. Your hands relax anyway. The library trusts you. You sense that scientists, in their own way, have learned this lesson. They do not shout at atoms. They do not rush them. They cool them. Shield them. Create spaces where the world grows quieter, just enough for memory to persist a little longer. This idea settles into you gently. There is no frustration here about fading. Only respect. The understanding that memory, at its most delicate, must be cared for rather than commanded. The light ahead shifts again, growing cooler, calmer, almost hushed. You feel the air change against your skin, like stepping into shade after sun. The hum becomes a whisper. You take another slow breath in. You let it go, fully. As you drift forward, the shelves thin out, and the space grows stiller, preparing you for a place where motion slows even further, where energy quiets to a near standstill, and where memory, given enough calm, may finally learn how to rest longer than before, waiting for you in a room where time itself seems to soften. You feel the temperature change before you notice anything else. Not cold. Just hushed. The warmth of the earlier rooms does not vanish. It settles, like a blanket folded neatly at the foot of a bed. The air here is cooler in a way that invites stillness rather than resistance. You instinctively slow your breath, matching the mood of the space. Inhale gently. Pause. Exhale, as if fogging glass that does not need to be cleared. This part of the library feels quieter, not because there is less happening, but because everything has learned to speak more softly. The shelves are spaced farther apart now, and the light between them feels bluer, calmer, steadier. It does not flicker as much. It lingers. You sense that movement here has been politely discouraged, not banned, just asked to behave. This is where memory rests. Earlier, you learned that quantum memory fades easily because it listens too well. Here, you learn the other half of that truth. When the world grows quiet enough, memory can finally hear itself. When energy slows, the constant nudging from the environment eases, and the delicate patterns held by atoms are allowed to remain a little longer. Cooling, you realize, is not about freezing things in place. It is about reducing interruptions. You walk slowly, careful not to disturb the calm, though you know your presence already counts as a disturbance of sorts. The library does not mind. It simply asks that you move with intention, like someone walking through fresh snow who does not want to leave unnecessary footprints. You smile softly at the image. The hum beneath the library has changed again. It is lower now, deeper, like a sound you feel more than hear. It wraps around your breathing, steady and unhurried. Time itself seems less interested in moving forward quickly. Moments stretch without effort. This is what stillness feels like at the atomic level. When energy is lowered, atoms move less. They chatter less with their surroundings. The constant buzz of interaction quiets down, and in that quiet, memory becomes clearer. Not louder, clearer. Like stars becoming visible only when the city lights dim. You pause beside a shelf where the glow is steady and calm, holding its shape without trembling. The atomic pages here feel composed, unbothered, as if relieved to finally be left alone for a while. Their memories are still subtle, still delicate, but no longer under constant siege. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out even more slowly. There is something deeply comforting about the idea that memory thrives in calm. That to remember well, the universe sometimes needs to lower its voice. The library seems built around this principle, every surface encouraging quiet without enforcing it. You think about how often stillness is misunderstood. Treated as emptiness. Treated as inactivity. Here, stillness is revealed as care. As a deliberate condition that allows fragile things to persist. A shelf nearby emits a soft, unwavering glow, and you sense that it has been holding the same memory for longer than most. Not because it is stronger, but because it has been protected. Shielded from noise. Allowed to exist without being constantly jostled. This makes you feel unexpectedly hopeful. If memory can last longer simply by making the environment gentler, then preservation does not always require force. Sometimes it requires restraint. Less energy. Less interference. Less insistence. The library seems to approve of this thought, though it does not react. Approval here feels like continued calm. You walk deeper into the cooled space, and the light grows even steadier. Colors soften. Edges blur just enough to remove sharpness, but not clarity. The shelves feel patient, unhurried, content to remain as they are. There is a quiet humor in how much effort it takes elsewhere to achieve what here comes from slowing down. Entire systems built to accelerate, when all that was needed was permission to rest. The atoms do not judge. They simply respond. In this cooled library, memory does not fight to stay quantum. It is allowed to be. The delicate superpositions and entanglements you saw earlier remain intact a little longer, not because they are trapped, but because nothing is rushing them to change. Time feels different here. Not slower exactly. Softer. Like a clock wrapped in fabric so you can no longer hear it ticking. The moments still pass, but they do so without pressure. You notice your own thoughts mirroring this shift. They move less urgently. They linger. You are not trying to arrive anywhere. You are simply present, and presence feels sufficient. The library teaches without speaking. Cooling is care. Quiet is support. Stillness is not absence. You stop walking again, and this time the pause feels complete, as if movement itself has decided to rest with you. The shelves do not expect anything. The atoms do not perform. They simply continue holding their memories, grateful for the calm. You sense that scientists have learned to create places like this deliberately. Environments where energy is lowered, noise is minimized, and atoms are given space to remember without being constantly reminded of everything else. This understanding settles into you gently, like a thought you will not need to revisit often because it will stay. The light ahead begins to shift once more. It remains cool, but something new appears beneath the calm. A subtle readiness. A sense that even in stillness, observation matters. That listening itself can shape what is remembered. You take another slow breath in. You release it, fully. As you drift forward, leaving the deepest quiet behind, the library does not suddenly wake. It transitions smoothly, like night easing toward morning. The shelves ahead feel attentive rather than silent, prepared for a different kind of interaction. You sense that the next space will not ask for more energy, only more care. That memory will soon be shaped not by stillness alone, but by how gently it is noticed. And carried by cooled air and softened time, you move onward, toward a place where remembering happens not by touching it all, but by listening closely, as the library opens itself to a quieter way of being known. You feel it immediately. This room is attentive. Not alert in a sharp way. Attentive in the way a still lake reflects whatever leans close enough to be seen. The air remains cool, but it has softened further, like breath held just before sleep. You slow instinctively, as if even the idea of movement could ripple the space. Inhale gently. Pause. Exhale, letting your body become less noticeable to itself. The shelves here do not invite touch. They invite presence. You notice that the light behaves differently now. It does not drift or flicker. It waits. It settles around atoms as if listening for something that might emerge on its own. Nothing is demanded. Nothing is extracted. This is where memory is written without being pressed. You remember how often knowing is framed as taking, measuring, probing. The library offers a quieter approach. Here, understanding comes from careful observation, from letting atoms reveal themselves in their own time. You stand beside a shelf, and it does not change because you are there. Or perhaps it changes in ways so subtle that they feel more like agreement than reaction. Memory here is influenced by attention, but not startled by it. There is something deeply respectful about that. Scientists in this space do not force atoms to speak. They listen. They arrange conditions gently, lower the noise, steady the light, and wait. Information arrives not as a shout, but as a whisper that grows clearer the longer it is allowed to continue. You smile faintly at how unfamiliar this feels. In many places, listening is treated as passive. Here, listening is active work. It requires patience, restraint, and a willingness to be changed by what you observe. The library seems built around this principle, every surface encouraging stillness rather than control. The hum beneath the room is barely present now. It is thinned to a presence you feel more than hear, like a reminder that something is happening even when nothing appears to move. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out, longer still. You notice that memory here does not announce itself with certainty. It reveals patterns over time. Repeated observations, gentle and consistent, allow understanding to form without collapsing the delicate states you learned about earlier. This is writing without touching. An atom's memory is not etched or stamped. It is inferred. Seen through how it responds to light, to fields, to carefully chosen questions that do not insist on immediate answers. Each observation is like glancing at a page without flattening it. You think about how easily curiosity can become intrusion. The library does not shame this instinct. It simply demonstrates another way. A slower way. One that values the continuity of memory over the speed of knowing. There is a small, quiet humor in realizing that the most advanced science here looks a lot like patience. The shelves glow softly as you pass, their light steady, composed. They do not brighten for attention. They do not dim in avoidance. They exist in a state of readiness, aware that being observed is part of their story, but not the whole of it. You sense that observation itself leaves traces. Even listening shapes memory. But the difference lies in scale. Gentle observation nudges rather than overwhelms. It preserves complexity instead of flattening it. This idea settles into you like a sigh. You stand still for a while, longer than you expect. Time here does not ask you to move on. The room feels complete without activity, as if it is already doing what it came to do. Memory, you realize, does not always need to be written explicitly. Sometimes it is enough to know how to read what is already there. The atoms seem to appreciate this. Their memories remain layered, shared, and delicate, yet stable enough to be known without being undone. The environment has been tuned carefully, like an instrument that must remain in harmony with itself to produce anything at all. You breathe again, slow and easy. In this room, scientists learn to ask questions that do not demand answers. They create conditions and wait. Patterns emerge. Correlations reveal themselves. Memory is understood as behavior rather than inscription. This feels important. If memory can be known without being disturbed, then the future of remembering does not require louder tools, only gentler ones. The library seems quietly optimistic about this, though optimism here feels more like trust than hope. You feel a warmth spread through your chest, subtle but present. There is comfort in knowing that understanding does not always require disruption. That knowing can be an act of care. The shelves begin to thin ahead, and the light grows slightly brighter, as if preparing for something new. Not urgency, just anticipation. The kind that arrives naturally when patience has done its work. You sense the future approaching, not loudly, but like dawn. Gradual. Unannounced. Inevitable in its own time. You take another slow breath in. You let it out, unhurried. As you drift forward, leaving the listening room behind, the library does not close itself off. It remains attentive, holding its memories gently, ready to be known again. Ahead, the shelves begin to feel different. More structured. More purposeful. You sense that what you have learned here will soon take shape in something more tangible. That these quiet ways of remembering will influence machines, tools, and systems yet to come. The hum beneath the library deepens just slightly, like a thought forming without words. And carried by steady light and careful attention, you move onward, toward a space where memory begins to imagine its future, where the library's quiet wisdom starts to breathe into the shape of machines that remember not loudly, but well. You notice the shift gradually. The library does not announce the future. It allows it to appear. The light grows a little brighter here, not sharper, just clearer, like morning light spreading evenly across a room where someone is still asleep. The air carries the same calm you have learned to trust, but there is movement in it now, a gentle readiness. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out, releasing expectation. The shelves begin to look different. They are still made of light, still composed of atoms resting patiently, but there is a new sense of arrangement. Not rigidity. Intention. You sense pathways forming, quiet routes through which memory might travel without being hurried. This is where the library begins to imagine machines. Not machines as you have known them. Not loud, insistent things that blink and buzz and demand constant attention. These feel softer, more contemplative. They do not shout with speed. They breathe with efficiency. You pause beside a structure that feels halfway between shelf and device. It hums gently, almost shyly, as if uncertain whether it should interrupt your calm. Its memory is not stored in rigid blocks, but in delicate atomic relationships, layered and shared, held together by the same principles you have been learning all along. Superposition. Entanglement. Care. You realize that these future machines do not treat memory as something to be crammed into place. They treat it as something to be hosted, protected, allowed to exist in its own natural complexity. There is a quiet humor in imagining a computer that prefers silence. In the world outside, machines are often designed to be fast above all else. Here, speed feels secondary. The library suggests another value, coherence. The ability to hold many possibilities at once without collapsing them prematurely. Quantum memory makes this possible. Instead of flipping between simple states, these machines allow atomic pages to overlap, to remain open, to influence many outcomes simultaneously. Computation becomes less about marching forward and more about exploring a landscape gently, seeing where paths naturally align. You feel this idea settle into you like a deep breath. The hum beneath the room grows warmer, steadier, as if pleased with the direction of thought. The machines here do not replace human thinking. They complement it. They remember in ways that feel closer to how the universe itself remembers. You walk slowly through this section, noticing how the shelves curve subtly toward one another, forming loops and networks. Memory here is not linear. It is relational. One atomic state influences another, not through commands, but through shared conditions. This is computation as conversation. You stop beside a cluster of glowing structures that seem to work together, their light rising and falling in unison. They feel less like separate devices and more like a single, distributed awareness. Not conscious. Not alive. Just deeply coordinated. You smile softly at how calm this coordination feels. These machines do not rush to answers. They allow patterns to emerge. They hold uncertainty long enough for something meaningful to form. In doing so, they reflect the same patience you have felt throughout the library. You breathe in. You breathe out. You sense that quantum memory could change not just how machines store information, but how they feel to use. Interactions become quieter, more intuitive, less about issuing instructions and more about guiding conditions. Instead of forcing results, you learn to listen to outcomes. The library seems to approve of this approach. It hums gently, like a system that has found a sustainable rhythm. You think about how often technology feels overwhelming. How often it pulls you out of yourself instead of supporting you. These future machines feel different. They are built to preserve delicate states, not destroy them. To operate within calm environments, not noisy ones. They require care. And in return, they offer depth. You sense that building such machines is not easy. Quantum memory is fragile. It demands cooled spaces, quiet conditions, and constant attention to balance. But the library does not frame this as a drawback. It frames it as a reminder. Power comes with responsibility. You pause, letting that idea sink in. The light around you feels warmer again, like reassurance. Nothing here suggests domination or acceleration. Progress, in this library, feels measured, thoughtful, ethical by design. The machines you glimpse here are shaped by the same listening you saw earlier. They are born from observation rather than imposition, from cooperation with atomic behavior rather than attempts to overpower it. You feel a subtle sense of relief. If the future of computing grows from these principles, then technology may become quieter over time, not louder. More supportive. Less demanding. Memory will not just be faster, but wiser in how it is used. The shelves ahead thin slightly, and you sense a reflective pause in the library's flow. The future has been shown, but not celebrated. There is no triumph here. Only possibility, held gently. You breathe in slowly. You let it go. You realize that with new ways of remembering come new choices. How memory is used matters as much as how it is stored. Machines that remember deeply must be handled with care, guided by values as steady as the atoms that support them. The light ahead softens, becoming warmer, more intimate. The hum lowers again, thoughtful. As you move forward, the library seems to slow you just a little, preparing you. The shelves grow closer together, inviting reflection rather than exploration. You sense that the next space will ask a quieter question. Not what machines can do, but how they should remember. What it means to build systems that hold memory responsibly, without exploiting its fragility. And with a calm breath and unhurried steps, you drift onward, leaving the future shape gently glowing behind you, and entering a room where memory, ethics, and care begin to sit together on the same shelf, waiting patiently for your attention. You feel the shift immediately. The air seems warmer, almost like sunlight spilling across a soft carpet. The library itself pauses with you, inviting reflection. Inhale slowly. Pause. Exhale, releasing the urge to rush forward. The shelves here do not hum as much. They glow steadily, like lamps that have been lit for decades. Memory has grown heavier, not in weight, but in significance. You sense that what is stored here matters not because it is vast, but because it is treated carefully. Ethics, the library suggests, is the art of holding this memory well. You wander slowly through the aisles, letting the soft light brush across your skin. Each atom seems aware of your presence, but not alarmed. They trust that you are moving with care, that you understand the subtle responsibilities that come with knowledge. Inhale gently. Exhale fully. Let your shoulders drop. Earlier, you saw memory as layered, fluid, shared, and fragile. Now, it asks something more. It asks for judgment tempered with patience. For every possibility you preserve, there is a choice about how it will influence the next moment. Each interaction with memory leaves a ripple. You pass a pair of shelves glowing faintly in tandem, entwined like old friends. Touching one influences the other, gently, quietly. You imagine the responsibility this entails in a human context. Machines, humans, atoms, all capable of remembering. All capable of influencing one another. All deserving of restraint. The library does not scold you for thinking about misuse. It simply reminds you that the act of remembering is itself ethical work. You notice a faint scent in the air, like aged parchment warmed by sunlight. It is comforting, grounding. It reminds you that memory is both fragile and enduring, like leaves pressed between pages, or a whisper that travels carefully through a room. Gentle humor flickers in your mind. You imagine a scientist tiptoeing among these glowing shelves, balancing data like teacups in the softest hands. The library seems to smile at that image, approvingly quiet. Memory, you realize, is not only about knowing. It is about choosing what to honor, what to preserve, and what to let fade. The hum beneath the library feels like a soft heartbeat, steadying your own. You breathe with it. In. Out. In. Out. Each step forward feels deliberate, respectful. The shelves respond not because they are compelled, but because they are part of a network of care. You sense that the ethics here are subtle, woven into the environment itself. The air, the light, the hum, they teach restraint simply by existing. You pause beside a glowing section that seems to pulse slightly as if reflecting on the past. This is where the library reminds you that memory is a gift and a responsibility. Every action you take affects not just the present, but the possibilities of what the library or the future can remember. You think of machines and the quiet wisdom of the atomic memory you've witnessed. They could hold immense information, layered and entangled, superposed and delicate. Yet if treated carelessly, their power could overwhelm, distort, or erase. Ethics here is not about rules. It is about awareness, patience, and the gentle guidance of potential. A shelf glows faintly brighter as you pass, as if acknowledging your understanding. You feel a warmth spreading softly across your chest. There is reassurance in knowing that mindfulness can shape memory just as effectively as force or speed. The hum beneath you shifts slightly, a gentle accompaniment to your thoughts. It feels like a nod from the library itself. The atoms are not indifferent. They sense your presence and respond with a quiet, patient cadence. You pause again. You inhale. Exhale. The act of breathing becomes an ethical exercise in itself, a reminder that your presence influences what persists. Your steps, your gaze, even your thoughtfulness, leave echoes in this calm place. There is no judgment here, only understanding. The library reminds you that memory, like ethics, requires attention. It is not something to be automated blindly. It is something to be nurtured, tended, and respected. You drift toward a window of shimmering light, where atoms glow like tiny suns suspended in space. It is beautiful and unassuming, as if to say, power is quiet when wielded responsibly. You imagine this room reflected in the future. Machines that remember with care, people who interact with data gently, systems that respond rather than dominate. All guided by the same principles you feel here. The library whispers softly, ethics is a practice. Not a rule to enforce. Not a score to achieve. A steady, careful tending of what you and the world remember. You breathe in deeply, allowing this lesson to settle. You exhale slowly, letting the weight of responsibility feel lighter in your hands because it is carried gently. Memory, ethics, care, they are intertwined. Not rigidly. Not like chains. Like threads in a tapestry that is still being woven, still luminous, still alive. The light ahead grows warmer, wrapping you in a quiet blanket of understanding. The hum deepens ever so slightly, a gentle reminder that knowledge and ethics are inseparable. And as you prepare to leave this reflective space, you sense that the next room will guide you back toward the doorway. One where you will carry not just lessons, but understanding. A room where leaving does not mean forgetting. Where memory persists even when your attention drifts. You inhale slowly, deeply, one last time in this space. You exhale, long and unhurried, as if tucking the library's quiet guidance gently into your own awareness. And with that, the shelves seem to bow slightly, letting you drift forward, into the final chapter, where stepping away from this luminous, living library does not mean leaving it behind, but carrying its lessons softly into the world outside. You feel the library shift around you, but it does not move. It simply opens a path, subtle and patient, leading you back toward the threshold. Your breath deepens naturally as the shelves on either side seem to exhale along with you. Inhale slowly. Pause. Exhale, letting your feet carry you gently forward. You notice everything you have seen settling into a quiet rhythm in your mind. Not facts. Not equations. Not mechanical instructions. Understanding. Feeling. Awareness of subtle interactions, layered possibilities, and patient care. Memory, you realize, is not just stored, it is honored. The light in the library does not diminish. It does not need to. It remains, softly pulsing, like the slow, steady glow of a distant star, undisturbed by your passage. Atoms continue to hold their fragile superpositions. Pairs remain entangled, whispering across the room in invisible synchrony. Fragile pages retain their stories, even without immediate attention. You pause in a corridor, inhaling the gentle warmth that drifts through the air. Exhale slowly, feeling the quiet settle into your chest. For a moment, you notice how much you have absorbed without forcing it. The lessons were not delivered, they were experienced, breathed in, allowed to infuse you softly. You recall the hum that underlies the library, a subtle vibration threading through everything. It accompanies you as you step lightly along the path, a companion to the slow unfolding of thought. This hum is memory itself, not fixed, not demanding, simply persistent. It does not require your attention to exist. It is present because it is present, as you are present now, moving gently toward the doorway. The shelves on either side begin to feel familiar, less like objects and more like companions. They have watched you, guided you, taught you how to witness without rushing. Their glow holds a calm reassurance, as if whispering, "We remember, even when you leave." The library does not close its doors behind you. There is no sense of finality. The threshold you approach is not a wall or an exit, it is a soft invitation to carry the library beyond its physical space. Memory, like light, does not need boundaries. You step through, not leaving, but extending what you have learned into the world outside. Your breath slows further, even as your pace increases slightly. You feel the gentle pull of ordinary awareness returning. Shadows shift, air temperature changes, distant sounds reach your ears. Yet the library persists beneath it all, beneath every movement, beneath every thought that drifts like a small, unobserved cloud. You walk slowly, noticing how ordinary space now carries an echo of what you have witnessed. The soft layering of memory, the careful balancing of possibilities, the shared warmth of entanglement, it follows you. You realize that these lessons are not just in the library's light or atoms. They are in your perception, in your breathing, in the way you attend to the present moment. A subtle smile touches your face, barely conscious, as you acknowledge the quiet truth: the library never truly closes. It persists in the act of remembering, in the patience of observation, in the care with which you carry its wisdom forward. You notice small details along your path, the echo of distant shelves, the faint hum beneath your feet, the lingering warmth of atoms you no longer see directly. Each sensation is a reminder that memory is layered and continuous, not confined to a place or a mind. Even as you move away, the library's calm structure infuses your awareness, creating space within your own mind for patience, for reflection, for attentive presence. The air outside the library is slightly cooler, slightly lighter. You inhale it, sensing the contrast but also the continuity. Exhale fully, feeling that the principles of quantum memory, the care, the gentleness, the attention, are now portable, carried softly in your body and your consciousness. The atoms remember without needing your gaze. The light persists without needing your approval. Memory, you understand, is not dependent on constant observation, it exists in relation, in potential, in subtle balance. A gentle breeze brushes your face, faint and warm at the same time. You let it move over your skin, allowing the sensory grounding to anchor you as your awareness expands. The library's lessons, stillness, patience, attention, respect for fragility, linger quietly, threading into your perception like light filtering through leaves. You do not need to grasp them. You simply feel them. A soft smile rises again as you notice the pattern forming in your own rhythm of walking, breathing, noticing. Each step, each breath, each gentle acknowledgement becomes a way to carry memory responsibly. No urgency. No force. Only gentle preservation, attentive awareness, and quiet curiosity. You remember the entangled shelves, the superposed pages, the fragile, delicate memories. You recall the importance of observation without intrusion. The ethics of memory. The care that must be exercised when interacting with something so subtle, so potent, so alive in its quietness. All of it now lives within you, ready to inform your actions outside these walls. Your gaze drifts upward, past the glowing corridors, to the point where the library seems to stretch beyond sight. You recognize that leaving does not sever your connection. The metaphor lingers, the library of light, the atomic pages, the shared memories, they exist beneath everything. They exist in all quiet spaces, in every attentive pause, in every gentle breath. You inhale one last time in this transitional space. Hold it briefly, feeling the fullness of what you have absorbed. Exhale slowly, releasing not knowledge, but awareness lightly, as if placing it on a shelf you carry invisibly with you. The doorway ahead feels more like an invitation than an exit. Light drifts softly around you, echoing the quiet hum beneath the floors you have walked. Atoms, memories, layers of possibility all persist, patiently waiting, whether or not you return. The library's essence remains in the act of being present, in the conscious breath, in the choice to move carefully through the world. You step fully beyond the threshold. The ordinary world meets you gently. The air smells familiar, but carries a trace of calm you have learned to notice. Shadows and light play differently, slower, as if acknowledging the quiet growth you carry within. And as you walk away, the library does not fade. Its glow is not extinguished. Its memory does not vanish. It lives in subtle alignment with your attention, in the rhythms of your own breath, in the patient, deliberate care you now carry forward. One last soft inhale. One long, gentle release. You are leaving the library without closing the book. And somehow, that is exactly as it should be. The pages remain, quietly waiting, softly shimmering, ready to continue their story beneath everything, always.